Definitely, I'm a chemist. So I'm in support for pharmacists and dietitians. Why to do it? Oh, chemists, they can control what? The food, the medicines, and also can offer solutions for a better food production, and the harvest should be in better way obtained. So, from the beginning, what I'm trying to present to you is the possibility to evaluate the content of mycotoxins in different raw samples. Yes, this is a problem that the food that we have on our tables is a big issue today. Not only because it's very well spread over the world, but nevertheless to control the fact that some fungi, they are spread in the food, they have to be reduced when the food comes to us and we eat it. Okay, this work has been done during about 3 years, but we still continue to develop the methods and also to develop solutions for obtaining substances that can be used for improving the quality of the food. Definitely, if we have safe food, we can improve the quality of life. Also, developing and obtaining new substances can be used for consumer protection in offering good quality products. One big issue is to remove or to protect the food from appearing some toxins in it. And the last one that most of the people do not care about it is the improvement of the storage conditions for the food. That is mostly the worst factor that we do not care about it when we store the food for a long period of time. Here we have to mention that every state has a strategic reserve for food, and the food in strategic reserves is kept for more than 1 year, 3 years at least. So if the food is stored for 3 years and you have no ability, no possibility to control or no possibility to protect it, that's a big trouble. What happens with the food that is stored in strategic reserves? It's a trouble, a big one for the state. So, how these toxins can appear in the nature? There are only 3 of them mentioned here, the species of Aspergillus fusarium and Penicillium. We know that each species is producing not only one toxin, but several. They are the metabolites of their biological activity. So you cannot distinguish if you have, let's say, fusarium, that you will have there only aflatoxin or zearalenone. They are together. The percentage and the ratio between them, it is variable depending on conditions. So, after the 1960s, when DDT was a big trouble for the agriculture, in 1970s, mycotoxins have been replacing the problem with DDT, and now mycotoxins represent a very big problem for the agriculture. The studies that were done even early in 1970s showed that some very small dosages, they are giving very bad issues in health of living organisms. On mice, they were showing with very low quantities of dosages that I believe that one is beeping. Oh, it stopped. So, with 2 milligrams per kilogram corp, you have death for each of the mice. So the level is very low. Definitely, there were studies of bioactivation of these compounds inside the organism. The scheme is showing how aflatoxin B1, it is changed to the M1. The B1 is naturally occurring, but the M1 is the metabolite that appears only in milk after processing in liver of the cows, the B1. In, let's say, in this last 10 years, there were a lot of firms, a lot of companies trying to obtain chemical compounds to protect the food and the crops from appearing these kind of mycotoxins. They offered even solutions with different substances, and you can see the reducing at half the incidence of some aflatoxin. Definitely, most of the people, they tried to see how these substances they can act in the organism. I know it's a little bit shifting this conference from the main point of nutrition, but if the aflatoxin goes inside your organism, the aflatoxin reductase is keeping in it the volume where the substance is appearing. You will see it. These substances are kept inside and maintained inside the organism. They are really stable. They are thermostable. So they are really tough substances for our organism to process it. That's a trouble, because they are acting as, let's say, enemies of our organism. Very small substances, very big troubles. We heard a lot of things about the food, but what's in it, it's a very important thing. Let's say how it is the subject approached by different scientists. First, development and obtaining of new substances for protection, prevention, and treatment. Then, introducing these materials to protect the crops. Nevertheless, finally, developing and obtaining instruments for analysis. What kind of analysis? With destroying the samples or non-destroyable samples? Would be better to obtain instruments that do not destroy the samples. Nevertheless, you will see the impact of vegetable oil in mycotoxin infestation is mostly half from the food market. We heard that nuts, they can offer a better life with reducing the heart diseases. Yes, if they are clear. If not, the peanuts, peanut products and nuts, they are a fifth of the incidence of mycotoxins into the market of food. Also, the cereals and cereal products, almost a sixth from it. How to do it? To control the average or the content of mycotoxins. There are possibilities to do it in a very, let's say, direct way with tests on the crop. That is really offering some information of fungi infestation, not necessarily on mycotoxins. Then, rapid tests, kit tests, to see if the samples taken from storages, they can contain or are containing already mycotoxins. If these are not enough, then very new methods like HPLC offer the possibility to control and evaluate and quantify exactly the quantities and what kind of toxins they are present into the food. So, what was our purpose? To obtain first a method for simultaneous separation of 3 mycotoxins in only one determination. First was aflatoxin B1, the second ochratoxin, and the third one, it was zearalenone. So it is known that these 3, they occur in a lot of samples. So we tried and we succeeded to obtain and to validate a method that is measuring and quantifying these samples. Because these are 3 different analytes, we needed an internal standard to introduce into the method. It was phenacetin. So these are the 3 molecules. Okay. How to do it? The instrument that was used, it was a Dionex Ultimate 3000 containing a rack, a pump, autosampler with possibilities of 120 vials for samples, the column, and the detector. Detector with 4 simultaneous channels in UV detection. Mycotoxins are bonded inside the raw biological material. So there were even from 70s studies to determine the ratio between each molecule of toxin to the proteins or to the DNA. And we can see it's almost 1-to-1. There are also samples that are more than 1-to-1 in the ratio between the mycotoxin and the DNA. So we have to extract it in order to determine it. The preparation of the sample, as a chemist, I'm saying, is the best stage to perform analysis and is the most sensitive. If you do not prepare the sample in very good conditions, it means you give to the instrument some garbage. So the result that comes out is also garbage. So we used ethyl acetate to extract from the raw biological samples the mycotoxins. The 3 of them. Maybe others too, but we just measured these 3. Also, we dried the samples. This is a kind of long process. It takes about 2 hours for each sample to prepare it for injection in the HPLC. The HPLC method has used a specific gradient using 3 different elution solutions, a buffer, and methanol and acetonitrile. Why to use separately at methanol and acetonitrile is to wash the column in order to do successive analysis of lots of samples. Here it is the washing of the column stage from the method. So what were the results? From aqueous solutions with pure substances, we determined for each of them the retention time, and we had to determine that there are no interferences between them. Then, after introducing and measuring the raw biological samples, we have obtained for each of the toxins calibration curves and measurements that were viable to a very low quantification limit. This was the method from raw biological samples that are naturally occurring. But I mentioned that there was a second method for the metabolite of aflatoxin B1 with aflatoxin M1, that it is found in milk. Naturally, is not occurring M1, is only occurring in milk. So, the second method was developed also on the same procedures like the other one. The aflatoxin is bonded to different proteins, so has to be extracted and to be determined. Definitely, this is a longer process than the other one. This one takes about 3 hours to make it for only one sample. Definitely, we are doing in parallel a lot of them, but it takes a long time to prepare the sample for determination in raw milk. The gradient of the HPLC method, the same was using 3 elution solutions, a buffer, methanol, and acetonitrile. Again, washing stage is here to prepare the column for the next injection. So, here are the results for the aflatoxin M1. And we can see that there is no interference at the retention time of the mycotoxin. Okay, what were our results in the validation of the two methods? The extraction was by liquid-liquid with ethyl acetate, pure ethyl acetate for all these toxins. The UV detection was using different wavelengths for each substance separately. We had a detector that has the possibility to do it. Internal standard was necessary to be introduced. The times were really short, the recovery were very stable at the levels that these substances can be obtained from the raw samples, and the quantification limits, they came very low to about 3 nanograms per gram for aflatoxins and ochratoxin, and 14 nanograms per gram for zearalenone. And for validation, precision and accuracy of the methods were, let's say, they respected the values accepted for validation. So, there are 2 new methods for validated for determination of 3 simultaneous mycotoxins into the raw biological samples, and 1 for determination of the aflatoxin M1, the metabolite of aflatoxin B1 from raw milk. The usage of very ordinary HPLC system, it is not a very complicated one. It's a simple, the most simple one. It is usable for determination from both types of biological samples, and to use these methods for several successive samples. For one day, there were about 30 to 40 samples that were analyzed. Nevertheless, these methods were optimized in order to be used also for different types of raw biological samples. So not only from raw cereals or milk, they can be adapted for other biological samples too. Each method has included the washing gradient in advance in order to prepare the column for the next injection. These methods were used for were financed by World Bank and Romanian Ministry of Agriculture in a program of research. So, thank you very much.